Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of On the Move with the Caravan football preview. We're going to be talking about week 2 matchups. I'm here with Jim Powers. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. What a great first weekend of just high school sports in general. But, what an outstanding first week of high school football. So many big games, outstanding performances, a few upsets along the way. But, just a great week by all of our kids around the area.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a fantastic week. We enjoyed even broadcasting our matchup at St. Pius. The outcome wasn't what we wanted, but at the same time, a lot of fun. And then looking around at the area scores and seeing what those schools did. I mean, it just gets you excited for this season. And let's just jump right into our week 1 scoreboard review from all the games that you highlighted last week. And why don't you talk a little bit about some of those?
Yeah, without a doubt. And you start with that Valley Catholic second game. And the score is so deceiving, it's unbelievable. Because this game was actually tied at one point. And then Valley does what Valley does. Jed Nager has a great group down there, a lot of tradition. And they know how to win games like that. And especially Seckman coming off the news that they bump up to Class 6. Valley stays in Class 5 or Class 3. That's a monster win for the Warriors, and doing it in that fashion, scoring 30-plus points, unanswered in the second half, just an unbelievable game for them. Then you jump down, St. Gen. Wow. I mean, you look at, just a great performance, and we talked a little bit about it last week. Anytime St. Gen can be back in a conversation of having really good football, that means everything's going good in the world, so to say. And what they did to Festus, and once again, we talked a little bit about Festus having some holes to fill, having some, things to work on. When you've got a new quarterback after you lose a great kid like Rickerman, I mean, it's going to take a little while to get through those growing pains. But St. Gen comes out of nowhere with a great victory. St. Pius, a little bit on the short end, but good performance. I think some good building blocks there. For them as they leading into their week 2 matchup against Bishop the Burr. Probably, one of the games of the week that was probably the best in the area was Sean Kirkwood. Kirkwood gets a big lead. Then all of a sudden, here comes Vashon. And they score. They get a 2-point conversion to get the victory. And, they did everything that they needed to do in the second half. And Jeremy Macklin, it's a learning point for his kids. You get a big lead. You can't take your foot off the gas pedal. And they kind of did in the second half. But Vashon's got so many athletes and a terrific running back to where he finally was able to get some room to maneuver and do some big things. Howell and Zumi North. Unbelievable. I mean, Howell just comes out of nowhere. And this is on the heels of Howell finding out the news that they get bumped from Class 6 down to Class 5. They're the largest Class 5 school now in the state of Missouri. And they proved it. What they did to Zumwalt North from start to finish was just super impressive. I mean, offensively, Brett Norfleet is such a great kid and such a great athlete. He had a big night. Then defensively, when you shut down any Joe Bacon team, you're doing something right. And so great victory by Howell. And then the 2 signature wins, I think, in the area. Number 1, St. Mary's travels over to Oakland Avenue to take on the Junior Bills. They get up 14-0. Then Wingo decides I'm going to start, get things going. And they get it to 14-10. But then St. Mary's defense said, you're done. And they shut them out the rest of the way. And they did things against Wingo that you don't normally see. Their 2 wide receivers got into the mix and had big nights, for the Dragons. That's a huge win for them. And they move up from Class 3 to Class 4, going against the Class 6 team. And it makes it really interesting now to see how well St. Mary's is going to go in Class 4. And then CBC goes out to Hall of Fame Stadium out in Canton, Ohio, in a tight game at the half. But then their, offense woke up. Dylan Van had a terrific, evening. couple touchdowns, over 130 yards rushing, and they got things going. They didn't need to have to rely on their young quarterback in this game. They're going to need the young quarterback to step up to the plate this week, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But, CBC's doing what CBC does. They get big wins early in the season, and that's what it's all about. In one game, I know we've got a lot of viewers down, in the southern part of Jefferson County and St. Genevieve. How about Jackson losing for the first time in 4 years at the Pit? Edwardsville is a really good team. Jackson, Brett's got a great team coming back. But for Edwardsville to go down into the Pit and hand the Indians their first loss of the year, I think Edwardsville just served notice to the Southwestern Conference over on the Illinois side, including East St. Louis. We're not dead yet. We're going to have a really good team this year. So, a couple great victories, couple surprises, but overall just an outstanding week one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, going into week two, as we start talking about our highlighted games for this week, we have Herculaneum traveling to Fredericktown. Both teams 1-0 on the season. Herculaneum had a great performance from their quarterback, senior quarterback Jackson Deering, 242 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. 7 of those completions he made was to the senior running back Lucas Barr, who had 7 catches, 223 yards receiving, and 4 scores. So Fredericktown, they have apparently played some really good defense in their win. What do you know about that game, Jim?
You know what? And what a great performance by Herky coming out of the gate. And I know me and you took a few shots from the Herculaneum crew, our boys down there. Didn't like the fact we didn't feature them last week.
Right.
But no, Jackson Deering, I think, could be, somebody that you better pay attention to. He does a lot of great things in the pocket. He makes good decisions. He's very smart in running that offense. And then when you got Barr, that you can count on, number one, to run the ball, but also you could flare him out on some bubble patterns and different things like that, slide him out to the slot, and you're able to get him the ball. That's going to be a great 1-2 punch for this Herculaneum offense. Now, Fredericktown, they're a good team. They're going to be very salty defensively. They're big and physical up front. So, the Black Cats are going to have to match that physicality right out of the gate and give Deering some time to make some good decisions, give Barr some time to make some big plays. But then you got to look at the Herky defense. They did a great job last week. They need to step it up one more level this week because Fredericktown's got a good offense and they love to pound the ball right down your throat. So it's going to be a great matchup between two really good teams. I'm excited to see that matchup.
Absolutely. And given how much total offense Herculaneum had to how much Fredericktown gave up themselves, I mean, they only allowed 92 yards passing and 97 yards rushing against Jefferson in week one. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting battle between an explosive offense in week one and a really tough defense in week from Fredericktown this week. Then we also have Valley Catholic. They're going to make the trip up I-55 and they're going to visit the Tigers at Festus. What do we know about that one, Jim?
Yeah, and once again, Valley coming off just a monster win last week. And once again, they're doing what Valley does. They're beating you up front in the trenches. They're trying to get the ball into their receivers' hands, and they're trying to get the running game established to open up some things. And then defensively, in the second half, they were lights out. Anytime you can contain Cole Rubel from Seckman, like Valley did in the second half, you're doing something right. And Festus better strap it up and be ready. The last thing you want this Festus team to do is go 0-2, especially with a lot of us and a lot of other people saying that they're one of the teams to watch in Jefferson County. But if Valley goes in with the same work ethic, the same game plan that they went in against Seckman and do the things that they like to do, they're going to come out with a victory. Festus has to step up defensively. That's a game to where, St. Gen, a bunch of young kids, but really did a great job offensively. So you got to tighten some things up defensively if you're Festus, because if you don't, Valley can throw another 61 up on you. It's just like they did against Seckman.
Absolutely. And I mean, they were losing to Seckman 27-36 after 3 quarters and outscored 34-0 in the fourth quarter. So that explosive Warrior offense, they can graduate kids and they just seem to keep restocking with more and more explosive players that play football. So
it's tradition.
Yeah.
It's the tradition. It's you look at the bloodlines that have gone through down there, the Basslers and all of those kids, the Nagers. I mean, you just look at the family tradition lines that have played for Valley. And yeah, you know what? We've all talked about it. They did not get a great draw last year moving from 1 to 3. I disagreed with the 2-class jump along with a lot of other people. But you know what? They've adapted to it. They've scheduled up. And I tell you what, you keep playing the way you're playing, you're going to have a really, really successful team and make a pretty deep run in Class 3.
Absolutely. And then we're moving to our next game. We have Cape Central making the trip up north to visit the Hawks at Hillsborough. Hillsborough accumulated 350 yards on the ground last week, 518 total yards of offense against Sykeston. I mean, they let the Bulldogs have it. And Cape Central is no slouch, but what do we know about that one, Jim?
When you can run the ball like Hillsborough ran it against Sykeston last week, you're going to win a lot of ball games. And to me, right off the bat, that means that your offensive line is doing what they're supposed to do. They're moving everybody to the next level, and that's giving the running backs a lot of room to maneuver, a lot of looks, a lot of holes to see. And the great thing about Hillsborough with their running game is they're so diversified. They'll run some veer. They'll run some pitch sweeps, but then they're just going to go power at you. They're going to line it up and go helmet to helmet and just say, we're better than you. Here we go. And that's exactly what they did to Sykeston. Cape Central is going to be a little bit bigger than Sykeston, a little bit more nastier up front, so to say. So a little bit bigger of a challenge coming up this week. But if Hillsborough does what they can do and what we saw against Seckman and what we know about them, this could be a very easy victory for the Hawks. But once again, you can't rest on last week. You got to get better every week. And they can't, say, okay, we just had a great win. Let's do it again.
Right. And, Cape Central only gave up 2 touchdowns against St. Charles in week 1. So, again, explosive offense. See if the defense holds up for the Tigers and how that one pans out. Next, we have CBC playing East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis just lost to Baltimore St. Francis, which is the number 6 team in the nation. They lost 13-20, but had a 13-12 lead with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and one of the best teams in the nation found a way to beat them. So this should be a pretty interesting matchup for the Cadets.
I tell you what, you better get over to Clyde C. Jordan Stadium early on Saturday if you want a seat for this one. I mean, the running joke up here is CBC is one of the unofficial members of the Southwestern Conference over in Illinois because they play both East St. Louis and they play Edwardsville. But no, it doesn't get any better. I mean, high school football, these 2 teams, the top 2 teams in the metro area, the top 2 teams in each of their respective states. I mean, it's just, a game that you love to watch. A lot of big things that you're going to see out of this. And we're going to see really how CBC is. Last week they played a terrific opponent in Milton, one of the powerhouses down in Georgia, and did a great job. But now you're going to get an East St. Louis defense that is 5 times faster than Milton. They're going to throw every different blitz package under the sun at you, especially with a young quarterback. So you're going to have to grow up real quick. You've got Jeremiah Love. You've got Dylan Van. Those kids are going to be there. McClellan's going to be there as well out on the edge. So you're going to have some different looks. But you look at what East St. Louis has got. They've got the big boy up front, Miles McVey, who just committed to Auburn. I mean, not Auburn, Alabama, excuse me. He just opens up. He's a man-child out there. He just does so many things so extremely well, on the line. So, once again, the 2 best teams, you could see CBC go 2-0. You could see East St. Louis start the season 0-2. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but my gosh, what just a great, great day of football. Before that, you got the Smith playing IMG Academy out of Florida, who's the number 2 team in the country, by the way. So, I mean, here we go. That's why everybody's scheduled up playing big games. And I love the fact that we're talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. And let's pick up our next game. We have Rockwood Summit playing at Marquette. Summit had a pretty good game against Webster Groves as far as offense is concerned. Junior running back Elijah Stevens had 14 carries, 133 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns, and had 1 in the air. In Marquette, kind of the same thing. Very balanced on offense, 221 yards on the ground total, 212 yards through the air. And it seems like this is going to be a pretty even matchup. What do you think about that, Jim?
There's no flashiness here and there. This is just going to be two teams that are going to line up and just going to go after each other. Marquette's had some great seasons over the last couple of years. Once again, the bad thing with Marquette is they're just stuck in that brutal district in Class 6 with CBC, Kirkwood, and the likes of those. But they're really good, and they do so many things. And they do the run to set up the pass. They've got some good kids up front that love the block, and they're very diversified. It's very even balanced on what they do offensively, defensively. They're going to throw some different things at you. Summit, Eric Stewart, you graduated a bunch of kids last year. Crowbath graduated. A couple of those other linemen graduated. They picked up right where they left off. And for them to get slid down to Class 4, is going to help them. Now, obviously, they're in the same district as St. Mary's. So that, right there, that tells you better be ready to go when districts come around. But, the young man you mentioned, the running back, he's really good. They've got some big kids up front. Defensively, this, Falcon defense is really good. John Diffley, their defensive coordinator, is unbelievable. And remember, now, in the last 10 regular season games, they've only given up 2.9 points a game.
Wow.
In the 9 regular season games last year, in week 1 with the shutout, 2.9 points a game. And their defense has now scored in 6 of those 10 ball games. Kind of told you how good that Falcon defense is under defensive coordinator John Diffley.
Absolutely. I mean, that's an impressive number no matter what level you're playing. And then we have, as you alluded to earlier, Jackson Indians traveling to Francis Howell, and that's going to be a pretty good matchup, I think. So why don't you fill us in a little bit on that one, Jim?
When's the last time we've talked about Jackson probably going 0-2 to start the regular season?
It's been a bit.
It's been a bit, exactly. And we could see that. And once again, Howell jumping down the 5. This sets up just so many different possibilities when it gets into, state. Jackson's going to be in District 1. Howell slipping down to District 3. Guess what? You got a possibility of a state championship rematch with these two. I mean, once again, Howell just does so many great things. And I love the North Fleet kid. He's a multi-sport athlete. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge to all the kids watching this. It's good to play 2 sports. Terrific baseball player, unbelievable football player, tight end, does some stuff defensively for Brent Chinaki, but they just are, they put their hard hats on and they go to work every day. And they know what they need to do. They know that Jackson's still one of the top teams in the state. They know that they're going to have to weather the early storm because Jackson's going to come at you right out of the gate, especially now losing a double OT game to Edwardsville on their home field for the first time in years. They're going to come out ready to go. And you've got to weather that storm. If you weather that storm, you can do a lot of great things. And the other thing, too, is I don't think the Pit, if you've ever been to a game down in Jackson at the Pit, it is one of the most phenomenal home field advantages you're ever going to see in the state of Missouri.
Yes, it is.
Wait till they go to Howell. Because I'm telling you right now, they will be 5-6 deep on the fences. There will not be a seat to be had. And that's another one. 7 o'clock start. If you're coming up from down in St. Genevieve, from down there, you better get here about 4 o'clock. You might as well just take Friday afternoon off. Come on up, grab some dinner, and go sit and get ready to go watch a great ball game because it's going to be a packed house out there Friday night in Weldon Springs.
That sounds like a pretty awesome experience. And I do know from my cousin attending Jackson and playing football for them, what kind of home field advantage that they actually have. So this is going to be, I think this is kind of one of those big matchups, and it's going to kind of direct whether Jackson's going to take that step and rebound from that tough loss, or if Howell starts to exert themselves as being a legitimate contender for a state championship.
I think they are. And once again, just the way that the district's set up now, you look in Class 5 District 2, MICDS moves up from Class 4. Chaminade, Ladue, Eureka, I mean, I was talking the other night with a friend of mine. I said, in World Cup soccer, and I know you love soccer, by the way.
No, but continue.
In World Cup soccer, there's always what they call the group of death. It's always for the top teams in the not the United States, in the world, that always get thrown into the same 14 pool. Well, guess what? Class 5 District 2 is the group of death, so to say. I mean, because you got 4 teams that 1 through 4, any one of them can compete for a state championship and make it out to Columbia. I mean, that is how stacked Class 5 is. And I'm not afraid to say this, and I've already said it once. If you win Class 5 this year, you're the best team in the state of Missouri, any class, because of all the I mean, you got Webb City still in there. You got Carthage still in there. The talent out in the western part of the state, you still got sitting there. Class 5 is brutal. And with Howell bumping down, MICDS moving up, and a lot of the normal teams in there, you got Holt in there who made it to the state championship game last year. Class 5 is just unbelievably strong this year. And no offense to the Class 6 crew, no offense to CBC, DeSmet, Liberty North and all those guys. I'm sorry, you win Class 5, you make it through that meat grinder, you are the best team in the state of Missouri, all classes.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Well, Jim, I appreciate you joining us this week for another episode of On the Move with the Caravan football preview. We will definitely be recapping these matchups in next week in our week 3 segment. But I'm just like you, I'm really excited to see some of these games and how they transpire and what if we have a more clear picture of football in this area moving forward.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we're going to start to see some shifting and some maneuvering. But once again, it boils down to some great scheduling by the coaches and the athletic directors, setting up some great games in the early season. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And next week, too, we'll start to kind of recap a little bit on what you'll see on Scoops with Danny Mac. Every week is our football poll, how I break down the top 10 there. So we'll start unveiling that next week, too, on some of the stuff we're doing with Scoops with Danny Mac as well.
So, yeah, don't forget to check out Scoops with Danny Mac. You can see a lot of great content there. Jim, as always, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next week. I'm Chris Miller. And this has been On the Move with the Caravan football preview. Thank you all for joining. Tune in for new episodes of the Coach's Box each week on our Facebook page, YouTube channel, or the Streamline Sports app. Or you can listen to the audio version of our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, all for free. This episode of On the Move with the Caravan football preview with Jim Powers is brought to you by Scoops with Danny Mac and Off the Rails Media. Life's more fun when you're off the rails.